My name is Janie, and I am 54 years old. For 28 years, my entire world was my daughter Clara. I raised her alone in this little Cape Cod house in Millbridge, stitching love into every hem and patching heartbreak with whatever thread I had left. I was a seamstress, and my masterpiece was always her. I dreamed of the day I would sew her wedding gown, my fingers tracing the same delicate patterns I used on her childhood dresses. When she called last fall, her voice bubbling with a new polished excitement, to tell me she was engaged to a wonderful man from Boston, I felt my heart swell with a hope so bright it almost scared me. She promised we would talk plans soon, but then the calls became shorter. The texts grew vague, and a quiet, unfamiliar chill began to settle in the space between our words. Before I tell you about the day that silence shattered into a million sharp pieces, let me take a moment to connect with you. If you are listening to my story right now, I would love to know where in the world you are. Please drop a comment below and say hello from your city or town. And if you have ever felt a pang of being set aside, please tap that like button and consider subscribing. My story is just about to truly begin, and I would be honoured to have you along for the journey. The knee surgery was minor, the doctor said, a simple arthroscopic procedure to clean up some worn cartilage, just a few weeks of recovery. It was during those slow, housebound weeks that the silence from Clara became a physical weight. I distracted myself with fabric swatches, imagining colours for her bridesmaids. I must have sent her a dozen pictures: ocean mist sage, blush pink. She would reply with a single heart emoji, or sometimes not at all. One afternoon, bored and aching for connection, I logged onto Instagram to see pictures of my cousin's new baby girl. As I scrolled through the adorable photos, a suggested account caught my eye. The username was Clara and Marshall Forever. My breath hitched. The profile picture was small but unmistakable. It was Clara. Her hair was swept up in an elegant style I had never seen, and she was wearing a strapless ivory gown, her smile wide against a backdrop of what looked like professional studio lighting. A wedding portrait. My hands turned cold. I clicked on the profile. It was private. A fist of panic clenched in my chest. I called her phone. It rang and rang, then went to voicemail. I called Richard, my ex-husband. The call was sent straight to voicemail, as if my number had been blocked. The room felt like it was tilting. I had one person left to call who might tell me the truth. My Aunt Maureen answered on the second ring. Her hello was warm, but it faded when she heard my voice. "Janie, honey, are you all right?" "Maureen, I need you to be straight with me. Is there something going on with Clara's wedding that I do not know about?" The silence on the other end was long and heavy. I heard her sigh, a sound of profound sadness. "Oh, Janie, they have been planning it for months. It is a small, intimate ceremony, just immediate family and their closest circle, and they did not want you there." The words did not make sense at first. They floated in the air like dust motes. Did not want me there. Penelope Maureen said, her voice tight with disapproval. She got it into Clara's head. She said your presence, quote, would not be conducive to the tone they were trying to set, that it would make Marshall's family uncomfortable. She said a single mother who worked as a seamstress did not fit the image. Richard agreed. He said it would be simpler. And Clara, she just went along with it. I looked down at my hands resting in my lap. These hands that had held her as a baby, that had cooked her meals, typed her college essays, and yes, sewn her clothes. They were capable hands, strong hands, but in that moment they looked old and useless. They were hands that were not needed. The party was at the Seaport Hotel. Maureen drove me. I told her I just needed to see it. I needed to see it with my own eyes to believe it. We did not go inside. We parked across the street and I watched from the passenger seat. There she was, my Clara. She was more beautiful than I had ever seen her. Her gown was a sleek, modern designer piece, nothing like the lace and tulle sketches in my notebook. She stood in a circle of light from the hotel ballroom doors, laughing at something Marshall was saying. Richard stood beside her, looking proud and affluent in his tuxedo, and right next to him, her hand resting possessively on Clara's arm, was Penelope. She wore a champagne-coloured pantsuit that screamed money, her smile wide as she greeted guests. She was playing the mother of the bride perfectly. Something broke open inside me, a dam of denial, giving way to a flood of pure, unadulterated hurt. Before Maureen could stop me, I got out of the car. The cool Boston air hit my face. I walked across the street, my post-surgery knee protesting, but I barely felt it. Clara saw me first. Her smile vanished, replaced by a mask of shock and something worse, something like dread. She excused herself and hurried over her heels, clicking on the pavement. "Mum, what are you doing here? You should not be here." The words were so cold, so final. Why Clara? Why was I not told? Why was I not invited? She would not meet my eyes. She looked over her shoulder nervously. "It is complicated, Mum. This wedding. Your presence was not needed. It would have just complicated things. Dad and Penelope have everything under control." Not needed. Richard had noticed now. He was walking over Penelope close behind him. His face was a mixture of annoyance and embarrassment. "Janie, this is not the time or the place," he said in that low, dismissive tone I remembered so well. Penelope arrived, placing herself slightly in front of Clara, as if to shield her. "Janie, you really should understand that this is about Clara's future. Sometimes real love means knowing when to step back." I looked from Penelope's smug, pitying face to Richard's stony one, and finally to Clara's, which was now pale and pleading. I saw it then, not malice in my daughter, but a profound weakness, a fear of rocking the boat, a desire to belong to this shiny new world so badly that she was willing to erase the old one, and me. I did not cry. I did not yell. A strange calm descended over me. I looked directly at Clara and I smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was a smile of farewell, of profound disappointment, and of a decision being made. I turned around without another word and walked back to the car, leaving a stunned silence in my wake. Maureen started the engine and we drove away. As the city lights blurred past the window, I finally let the tears fall. They were hot, silent tears of grief. Not just for the wedding, but for the daughter I thought I had, and the woman I had allowed myself to become. The following weeks were a grey fog. I moved through my house a ghost among the ghosts of Clara's childhood. Her old room, the prom dress I made still hanging in the closet, felt like a museum to a life that was no longer mine. The physical pain in my knee was gone, but a deeper, more profound ache had taken root. One rainy Tuesday, I dragged my grandmother's old hope chest from the back of my closet. I needed to do something, anything, to feel connected to a time before this betrayal. Inside, beneath quilts and old photographs, I found two things that would change everything. The first was my sketchbook from when Clara was about 12. Page after page of wedding dress designs, flowing lines, intricate beading sweetheart necklines. In the margins, I had written notes. "Clara loves this sleeve. Add a gardenia here, her favourite flower, for my brave girl." My eyes welled up, but this time the sadness was mixed with a spark of anger. My brave girl. The second item was a yellowed envelope. Inside were stock certificates. My mother Clara's grandmother had bought a few $100s of shares in some fledgling tech company as a whim back in the 90s. She gave them to me for Clara's future. I had always forgotten about them, figuring they were worthless. On a hunch, I looked up the company name. My breath caught. That little company had been acquired, merged, and had grown. The shares were not a fortune, but they were something. They were a seed. That night, sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of tea that had gone cold, I made a plan. It was not a plan for revenge. It was a plan for resurrection. I would not spend another day begging for a seat at a table that rejected me. I would build my own table. First, I sold the shares. The sum was enough to be a real start. Second, I looked at my detached garage full of old lawn furniture and boxes. Not anymore. I hired a local handyman to insulate it, run proper electrical, and install large windows. My sewing sanctuary, I called it Threads of Grace, after my mother. Third, I signed up for a small business workshop at the local library. I walked into that room feeling like an imposter, but I found a group of women like me, a widow wanting to start a baking business, a woman my age who had been laid off from a factory. We became a circle of encouragement. The pain did not disappear, but it was no longer an anchor. It had become a fuel. For the first time in decades, I was not thinking about what Clara needed or what Richard thought. I was thinking about what Janie could create. The transformation of the garage was my therapy. Every swing of a hammer, every coat of paint was a reclaiming of myself. I bought 2 industrial-grade sewing machines, a large cutting table, and a magnificent full-length mirror. I painted the walls a soft, warm white and hung strands of fairy lights. My Instagram for Threads of Grace began simply. I posted a picture of a tattered, yellowed 1950s wedding gown I had found at a thrift store. Then I posted progress photos, gently removing the old, brittle lace, repairing the silk, redesigning the neckline. I wrote little stories about the dress, imagining the original bride's joy. The project was about preservation, about finding beauty in what others had discarded. To my astonishment, the local vintage blogger shared my post. Then a regional wedding blog picked it up. My inbox chimed with my first inquiry, then another. My first client was a young kindergarten teacher named Sarah. Her budget was tight and her mother had passed away from cancer 2 years prior. She brought me her mother's favourite evening gown, a simple navy blue chiffon. "Can you make this into something I can wear?" she asked, her eyes full of tears. I want to feel her with me. We sat at my kitchen table for an hour just talking about her mother, about her fiancé, about her fears. I did not just take measurements, I listened. I designed a sleek, modern reception dress for her using the navy chiffon as an overlay on a skirt and a sash. When she came for the final fitting and saw herself in the mirror, she wept, and I held her. It was not just a transaction, it was a sacred act. In healing that gown, I felt a piece of my own broken heart stitch itself back together. One day, I noticed a new follower on the Threads of Grace account, Clara. She did not message, but she watched every story. She liked every post. Then a text arrived. "Mum, your work is beautiful. How are you?" I stared at the words. I felt the old urge to pour my heart out, to demand answers, to seek comfort. Instead, I typed back, "I am well. Thank you. Busy with the shop. Polite. Distant, safe." I was building a life that did not require her approval to stand, and that I realised was the most powerful response of all. The reports came in fragments, mostly from Aunt Maureen, who still had occasional contact with that side of the family. The glossy picture-perfect life Clara had chosen was beginning to crack. Marshall, it turned out, was less a prince and more a patriarch in training. He had opinions on Clara's career, her friends, even how she spent her weekends. He wanted a corporate lawyer wife for appearances, but also a compliant hostess for his dinner parties. Penelope was a constant presence, critiquing Clara's home decor, her choice of china, her social calendar. She was not gaining a daughter, she was acquiring a project. The breaking point, Maureen told me with a sigh, happened at a dinner party at Marshall's parents' Beacon Hill home. Clara, nervous under the scrutiny, had used her salad fork for her dessert. A simple, honest mistake. Penelope had not let it slide. In front of everyone, she had said loud enough to Carrie Darling, "No, that is not how it is done. Did no one ever teach you proper etiquette?" The unspoken jab, the reference to her upbringing to me, hung in the air. Richard, according to Maureen, had taken a sudden, deep interest in his brandy glass. Clara had excused herself and spent 20 minutes locked in a bathroom, humiliated and seething. The sacrifice she had made trading her mother for this acceptance now tasted like ashes. I did not hear this from Clara, I saw it. One evening, as I was working late on a veil, I saw headlights swing into my driveway. I peered out the garage window. It was Clara's car. She sat there for a long time, the engine off. Then she got out. She did not come to the front door. She walked toward the glow of the garage windows and stood outside looking in. I was at my sewing machine, my posture straight, my hands guiding fabric under the needle with a rhythm that was now my own. My face reflected in the window was calm, focused, at peace. I did not look like a woman who had been broken. I looked like a woman who was building. She watched me for maybe 5 minutes, a silhouette in the dark. Then she got back in her car and drove away. She had not come for a confrontation or for comfort. She had come, I believe, to witness what resilience looked like, and she had seen it. 2 days later, she came back. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was pinning a pattern when I heard the tentative knock on the garage side door. She looked tired, beautiful but worn thin like a piece of paper held up to too strong a light. "Can I come in?" she asked. I nodded, setting my pins down. The space was filled with the scent of clean cotton and the soft hum of the space heater. She did not know where to start. She wandered, touching a bolt of silk, looking at the sketches pinned to my inspiration board. "This is amazing, Mum," she finally said, her voice soft. "Thank you." The silence stretched, then the dam broke. She sank into the armchair I kept for clients, and the words spilled out. The pressure, the constant criticism from Penelope, Marshall's controlling nature, how empty the big house felt, how she missed the sound of my sewing machine at night. "I just wanted them to like me," she sobbed. "I thought if I was perfect, if I fit in, it would be enough. And I thought you would always just be there, waiting. I am so sorry. I am so, so sorry." I listened. I let her cry. When she was spent, I handed her a box of tissues and sat down opposite her. "I am sorry you are going through this, Clara. Truly. But my love for you was never a license to treat me poorly or for me to remain a ghost in your life. I have built something here, for me." She looked at me, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time as an adult, seeing her mother as a whole person, not just a function. "What do I do?" she whispered. "That is your journey to start," I said. "You chose a beautiful dress over a strong heart. Now you can begin to build that strength back. But that has to be your choice, not something you do for me or to escape them." I got up and went to my desk. From a drawer, I pulled out the old sketchbook. I opened it to a page with a simple, elegant gown design. At the top, I had written, "For my brave girl." I tore the page out carefully, and I handed it to her. "My wedding gift to you is not a thing, it is an offer. If you truly want to find your way back to yourself, come here. Learn how to sew. Let these hands," she looked down at her own perfectly manicured hands, "learn to do something honest. They will teach your heart patience." Clara did not move back home. She started marriage counselling with Marshall, though I held little hope for it. But every Sunday she drove to Millbridge. She would come to the garage, and I would teach her. At first, she was all thumbs pricking her fingers tangling thread, but slowly she learned to thread a machine, to sew a straight line, to attach a button. We did not talk much about the past. We talked about fabric grain, about tension settings, about the quiet satisfaction of a finished seam. A new relationship was being stitched not from the old cloth of mother and child, but from the new, stronger fabric of two women who respected each other's work. Threads of grace grew. I hired Eleanor, one of the women from the business workshop, to help with administrative work. The shop became a quiet haven in town, known not for its opulence, but for its heart. I made wedding gowns for brides on budgets, christening gowns from grandmother's lace, and repaired precious teddies with the same care I gave silk. My value was no longer tied to anyone's guest list. Richard and Penelope still lived in their world of curated perfection. Clara saw them for holidays, but the relationship was cordial distant. The power dynamic had shifted. Clara was no longer a supplicant seeking entry. She was a woman with a place to go on Sundays, where she was valued for what she could make, not for who she married. I learned that the greatest love is not a desperate clutch, but a release strong enough to let someone feel the full weight of their own choices. And more importantly, I learned that a woman's worth is never, ever found in the approval of others. Be it an ex-husband, a daughter, or a glittering society, it is woven in the strength of her own hands, the resilience of her own heart, and the peace she builds stitch by careful stitch for herself. The most beautiful wedding dress I have ever made still hangs on a form in the corner of my shop unfinished. It is no longer a symbol of a pain, it is a promise, a reminder that from the most broken threads we can weave something beautiful, something durable, and something entirely our own. If my story resonated with you, I would love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had to rebuild your sense of self after a betrayal? What is the one thing you created that made you feel strong again? Please share your experiences in the comments below your story. Might be the encouragement someone else needs to hear today. If you found strength in my journey, please give this video a like to help others find it too. Do not forget to subscribe and share this with anyone who might need a reminder of their own resilience. Thank you for listening, for your kindness, and for being part of this community. Remember, no matter what is unwoven in your life, you always hold the needle.